Computing encompasses a wide variety of services, and to better classify those services, the field of cloud computing has developed cloud service categories. And these are broad definitions that encompass what the cloud service provider will provide to the cloud customer. So cloud service providers can provide anything from just a web application like Gmail to a full server that's controlled by the cloud customer but hosted physically at the cloud service provider's data center. There are many different types of cloud service categories that are thrown around the industry, but they all boil down to three main types. You have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Infrastructure as a service is the most basic deployment category. This is where the cloud service provider provides hosting for the physical device that will be used by the cloud customer. CSP provides the connectivity, the facility, the security, the servers, the network connections, the heating, the ventilation, air conditioning, the HVAC to keep those devices cool. And they house all of the infrastructure needed to host that device. So on the cloud customer's end, they're able to access the device, configure the device, and use it without having to physically own that device. They're renting or they're purchasing metered service for that device. They might have a contract for on a monthly basis or on an as-needed basis, or maybe several years. It all depends on what the cloud customer wants to do. So in this model, the cloud customer is responsible for the operating system. They're responsible to put on whatever operating system, and that might be negotiated with the cloud service provider, but the cloud customer is responsible for configuring the operating system, installing updates to the operating system, etc. They're responsible for putting a software applications on the device and for the data. In platform as a service, this is where the cloud service provider provides everything that was included in infrastructure as a service. So the building, the connectivity, facility, the security, all of that. And they include a fully upgraded and patched operating system to the cloud customer. So the customer is responsible for installing the software that goes on that operating system and for the data. The CSP will keep that operating system up to date. They'll patch it regularly, and they'll do all of the things on the back end, including hosting the physical hardware that the operating system will be installed on. Desktop instances or guest operating systems, virtual desktop instances, virtual desktop environments, guest operating systems, these are all platform as a service deployments. Software as a service is the broadest category, and this is where the CSP will manage everything but the data. This is where web applications come into play. So applications like Gmail, like Facebook, Spotify, all of those are web applications that are cloud-based and software as a service. Any sort of web mail interface is going to be a software as a service offering. And the vast majority of cloud computing is based on software as a service. YouTube, for example, is software as a service. In this deployment, the customer is only in charge of the data. They're only in charge of the settings for the data, maybe with a webmail application responsible for creating emails, sending and receiving emails, and that nature. So we're going to break it down here with this chart. We have software as a service as the broadest category. This includes the customer is in charge of everything. The CSP is in charge of everything but the data. Okay, so in this end, the customer only adjusts that data. They don't adjust the software. They're not in charge of installing any different types of software or the operating system or the hardware. Okay, then we get platform as a service. This is where you have guest operating systems, where you have database management, database hosted on a cloud platform that the cloud customers can access. And this is where The cloud customer is responsible for the software and the data. The CSP hosts everything else. And infrastructure is the most basic. Infrastructure as a service is the most basic offering. This is where the customer is responsible for upgrading and installing the operating system, the software and the applications, and the data. The cloud service provider will only provide the security, the connectivity, the physical housing of the device used by the cloud customer. So this is where you have servers, dedicated servers, or virtual private servers. Those are all infrastructure as a service offerings. Just general data storage is usually infrastructure as a service, unless it's a certain type of storage. So this is how the three main deployments differ, and basically it comes down to who has control of the software, who has control of the operating system. In all of these deployments, you're going to see the cloud service provider managing the power, the HVAC, the security, and the physical housing of the device. Okay, and then as the deployment expands, you're going to see the cloud service provider then taking charge of the operating system and then taking charge of the applications. So within the cloud computing industry, you're going to see a lot of different terms, hybrid terms I would call them, that differ from infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. You just need to know that all of those boil down to these three main categories. These are the categories you need to focus on. Everything else is just basically marketing jargon in an attempt to further classify these systems, but infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service are the three types.